I've been thinking lately about compulsions, about habits, about breathing, about how babies cry when they're born to get their lungs to start. Whether or not they're actually upset about being introduced to the fluorescence of the hospital, I'm not sure. But they start crying to get their lungs working. And maybe they're just upset about having to breathe now. After all, they've had their parent feeding them oxygen for 8-9 months. Poor little level 1 humans haven't done a thing yet. They only know what they have to do now. Scream and breathe. Somewhere along the way to becoming an actual human being, we lose most of our screaming privileges, but we keep on breathing. If you have to choose between water and air, you'll always choose air because that buys you another 3 days to negotiate yourself some water. You can't survive more than a few minutes without air, as annoying as that is when you seriously want to be lazy at the bottom of a pool or buried under a ton of dunas for a few hours. Sometimes I forget to breathe, just for a few seconds. I'm watching ASMR vid or petting my cat or reading a book and I become so invested in it I just sort of don't breathe for a bit. Usually what snaps me out of the trance is that uncomfortable burning in my lungs, occasionally coupled with lightheadedness, a grinding down of the teeth. I usually feel a bit embarrassed after that, even when I'm alone. Breathing has always been an issue, unfortunately. I'm 24 and sitting across from my psychologist listening to her talk about breathing. She's got a Harry Potter pillow on one armchair, which probably says more about her age than the 8 to 9 different colours she streaked through her hair. The only thing I take away from that first session is that if you're too anxious, you may start breathing with shorter breaths. If you don't ever take deep breaths, then your brain won't work properly. As she leads me through a guided breathing exercise, it's strangely disorientating, and although my lungs fill up with air for what feels like the first time in weeks, cynicism tells me that this is pointless and weird. I kind of feel like screaming would be pretty cathartic right now, but unlike babies, it's not appropriate for adults to scream unless absolutely necessary. So I just keep pressure on my diaphragm and continue to pretend I'm listening when she suggests I take up a hobby that I can't turn into a money-making endeavour, a sport or something. The high-intensity nature of the exercises in kickboxing improves stress reduction through the release of endorphins. Studies show it also helps reduce anxiety and depression. It is a great outlet for frustrations, Annabelle says. I remember to suck in air when she says kickboxing, and I think of all the A-grade dickbags I wanted to punch in my life. It's busy for a Sunday, early afternoon, and it's my first day with the Melbourne Dragons, the closest queer-friendly martial arts dojo to my home in Fairfield. The website says that the first class is free, and that this is best suited to those who want to learn how to protect themselves. The gym is a roomy shed, filled with hanging bags and suspended equipment. The floor's a spongy mat. On the second level, there's a long, full-length mirror stretching along one far wall, giving the space the appearance of a dance studio if it wasn't for the 2 roped boxing rings against the opposite wall. I walk up the stairs and meet Dean, who's going to be my teacher. I confess that I don't really understand what I had signed up for when he asked me if I brought a towel. I'm directed to dump my stuff in the single change room and change into what I'm hoping I can pass off as activewear. I walk out into the main room, where the other fighters are now stretching in the mirror, towels and drink bottles nearby. Dean kicks us off by putting on Beyonce's Single Ladies, which at some point morphs into the Macarena. Half an hour in, I'm in awe. I want to keep throwing fists, bopping and bouncing myself across the floor with these fighters. After an hour of playing along, my singlet's soaked through. My scrawny forearms are throbbing. I wish I'd stumbled across this sooner, because I could have started working towards a stronger body earlier. I love to move, have the compulsion to fidget, to twitch, to bounce, and I finally found somewhere to indulge that desire and need. It's after this first lesson that Dean tells me he can see I'm holding myself back. I'm not breathing. I wonder how he can tell. And as though he can see into my head, he explains the Muay Thai grunt thing that I thought was just a bit creepy and a whole lot try-hard, but wouldn't dare say out loud. That every single fighter who hit the bag or banged the pads had been making some kind of weird-ass noise every time they threw a strike. Dean explains, if you're silent in Muay Thai, you're not breathing. People always accidentally hold their breath, even experienced fighters. Making a noise helps with that. They teach you the same in scuba diving to remind you to breathe when ascending. The Muay Thai grunt, when done correctly, not only helps generate power, but does a thing I think at the time sounds super important. It engages the core. It's difficult and incredibly impractical to tighten the core throughout your training session or during an entire fight. That tension must be released. Not only will tensing for long periods of time be tiring, but it will make you slow and stiff. Tensing should only happen for a fraction of a second. This is why the sound being made is often a very short, like a ki, ah, or other sharp exhalation. It's not screaming for several seconds. It doesn't need to be loud. This is conscious, beneficial, impactful breathing. Letting out an ah lets you know you are definitely, absolutely exhaling when you should be. Kickboxers, like babies, yell because they're expected to. If they don't scream about it, there's a problem. Martial arts changed my life, Ryan, a fellow fighter, tells me around my 7th session. They haven't been to the last couple of sessions, away in hospital, but it's clear when they arrive they're the most seasoned fighter. No one fights the same as you, has the same body type, the same strength and flexibility. When I'm struggling with my stance, they give me little tips. Breathe. Try stepping left on the back foot, toe out, twist your hips, breathe, breathe. So yeah, I've been thinking lately about compulsions, about habits, about repetition, about how progress can be painful and slow. There's burns, split skin, swelling and bruising, and that's just the physical stuff. The physical pain, the concentration, movement, technique, try not to fall on my ass, are all pretty powerful reasons to keep me in the present, focused, breathing.